And here we go.
Welcome to the Great Work Insights podcast by the O.C. Tanner Institute, the show that features the people, the professionals, the thought leaders, and the coolest companies. And now your host, the man navigating the discussion about the culture, the organized chaos, and the best practices that compel great work, Todd Nordstrom.
I was recently asked a question that I totally confess and admit the question blew my mind. A friend of mine, a friend who has helped build massive companies, asked me this question, and I did not know how to respond. The question he asked was this: Todd, what's your big picture? It's a simple question, but it doesn't have a simple response. For me, I spend my days researching, I spend my days writing, I spend my time interviewing people and companies. I host this podcast, I contribute weekly to Forbes, I write books. And although I can look at every piece of work that I do and clearly see a goal for that piece of work, I never thought about my big picture. What does all my work combined look like? What is its purpose? Where am I going with all of it? What's your big picture? Do you ever think about how all of your work together stacks up? And as a whole, what does it mean? Where is it taking you? And why? What's the goal? My guest today might have some insights. He, like the rest of us, spends his time wrapped up in daily activities. He, like the rest of us, is typically only focused on his current project. But the difference with my guest today is that his job is focused on helping companies around the world see their bigger picture. Please welcome to the show Joel Bishop, Manager of Speaking and Training at the O.C. Tanner Institute. Joel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Todd. Thanks for having me.
For our audience's sake, I want you to start by explaining what is it you do as Manager of Speaking and Training at the O.C. Tanner Institute?
Okay, I'll try to make it make sense, simple. Actually, it is pretty straightforward and simple. My job in representing O.C. Tanner, and specifically the O.C. Tanner Institute, which is, I'm sure your podcast listeners have heard about it before, but the Institute really is focused on research, publishing, and presenting, sharing that research. So my side of it is really taking all the research and the ideas and the thought leadership that we've compiled, and as well as gathering other great ideas from the world, and then sharing that with leaders. So my job as a speaker is to go out and speak to leadership, whether that's in a keynote event, or whether that's in a small leadership meeting, or even doing training about the whys, the whats, the hows of recognition, and how we can convey our appreciation to our people. So my job is to really hopefully inspire leaders' minds and open them up to this concept of building cultures of appreciation, cultures of performance.
Joel, you and I have known each other for quite some time because, as all the listeners should know, we are colleagues. I work for the Institute as well, except the two of us rarely see each other because we both travel a lot and whatnot. So when we do, we spend most of our time just catching up. Hey, Joel, how's the family? That kind of stuff. Not too long ago, you and I had lunch together with a few other members of the O.C. Tanner Institute, and we started talking about, this is going to sound odd, but small airplanes. A conversation that is really probably only interesting to people who travel a lot like we do. But you told me a story that has really stuck with me because it not only revealed this concept of the bigger picture for you and your career, but I think it can give everyone listening a better perspective of the bigger picture in their own life. You were speaking at a company in Peru. Well, you know what? You just tell the story. Tell the story about that small airplane.
Okay, well, so a little background. I don't speak Spanish, but I did have a cool opportunity to go down and speak to a company called Corporación Lindley. Basically, they're a bottler, and really cool opportunity to go down to flying to Lima, and then we drove down the coast to Paracas. And after doing this training, this leadership training, where we talked about the power of appreciation and how that can affect cultures, how that can impact them and impact not only bottom line results, but the cultural results that leads to that point. Anyway, we had a great session, and at lunch, this young CEO of the company was talking about some things and really focusing on the bigger picture. And then he mentioned something I hadn't heard of before. He mentioned the Nazca Lines. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if you'd heard about them before our conversation, but I hadn't.
I hadn't.
And
no.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. So he said, "Hey, look, here's what we can do. We can send you and this other presenter that was with me. We can send you guys on this little airplane so you can see these lines." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. You're going to pay for me to go see something cool? Absolutely." So we go to this little airport, get on this little plane, and they flew us out a few miles into the desert, and it's a very arid place, very, very dry. And so what these Nazca Lines are these well, they're just these cool geoglyphs in the sand, drawn in the sand, and you can really only get the great perspective from up in the air.
So
anyway, it was just as cool. Anyway, yeah.
But see, this is where the story gets really interesting, and for the listener's sake, I want you to dive into the details here. You're in this tiny little plane. You're flying over, and you're looking over these what they're called geoglyphs, but they're really like big drawings in the desert. And so let's put this into context. You're looking down at these awesome lines, and then. When is it that you learn? Did you have to go back to learn the facts, or was somebody walking? What are the facts about these? Because these aren't small things. You're in an airplane looking down at pictures of monkeys and stuff, right?
Yeah. No, it's totally cool. So I did do some research afterwards because, as I said, I'd never heard of these things before.
Yeah.
So we're up in the air. We're in this little. It can maybe fit 8 people on this plane. I don't know. I mean, we're right behind the pilot and co-pilot. And so we're flying out there, and the Nazca Lines, so there's a lot of lines, so very like trapezoid circles, shapes drawn into the ground. There's, I think, over 900 of these geoglyphs,
wow.
as well as about 70 biomorphs, which are these more the animal and plant drawings, where there are, like you said, the monkeys, there's a hummingbird, a pelican, there's a spider, a thing they call the astronaut. Don't know if that is the case, but really cool. And they're massive in size. So I don't know if there's any that are any of the biomorphs that are more than hundreds of yards long. Mm-hmm. But there some of the lines. One of the line reaches up to about 9 miles. So it's just a long straight line in the sand. And so basically, you're up. You're up in the sky and you're looking at these things, and I kept wondering while I'm up in the plane, like, wait a minute, how in the world do they make these things, and how in the world could you understand what you're making from the ground?
Yeah.
Because you're back in I think it's about 1927, and again, I don't speak Spanish, so there's a Peruvian archaeologist. Here we go, Toribio Mejia or something like that. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Okay.
However, he spotted these lines when he was hiking in the foothills around Nazca, about 1927, and that was really the first time that any attention was given to these cool formations in the sand. And in fact, they were so hard to see from the ground to really get a perspective. It wasn't until the 1930s when commercial aircraft flying overhead saw them, and they really said, "Wait a minute, what in the world is that?"
Now, just for the listener's sake, because after you told me about these, the first thing I did after lunch was go back and Google this. And so, if you're listening to this show right now and you're sitting at your computer, pull up an extra browser and Google Nazca Lines, Nazca Lines, and you'll see the images we're talking about. But Joel, it does. When you were doing your research, when were these lines created? So we discover them basically in 1927, 1930-ish, right? And to where all of a sudden everyone's going, hey, there are these big drawings in the sand. How old are they?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's lots. There's not a ton known about the lines, though they've kind of dated it between the years 200 and 500 BC by members of this Nazca tribe. So they're very, very old. And because of the arid nature of this area, very little rainfall, not lots of wind, what they've done is they basically have gone through somehow, these people, or whoever created them, scraped off the top layer of sand, leaving this underlying layer, a little bit darker layer, visible. And so they were created, over 1,000 years ago, and they're still there, and they don't really change because the weather patterns don't really change that much. They don't know why necessarily they were all created. They had got some ideas, including, interesting ones. It was for extraterrestrials. I don't really believe that one myself. But they could be focused on crop or weather patterns and the winter solstice and summer solstice and certain things, perhaps for agricultural reasons or for finding water. I mean, there's all sorts of theories. But they're very old, and they're really amazing.
I think, what's amazing to me is, and I've thought about this numerous times, is whomever was waking up every morning and packing their lunch to go off to work, to brush the paba stone off the desert floor to draw these big images. But I mean, think about this. Some one of the lines is 9 miles long, and you go, come home after a hard day's work, and your significant other says, "What'd you do today?" I moved pabas, or I drew a picture of a monkey or whatever, and nobody can see it. That's just crazy. Okay, but beyond that, like what you just said, so these were created sometime between the years 200 and 500 BC.
Right.
So if you're on the ground, they simply probably look like walking trails or something, just stones moved out of the way. But you think about that, and we didn't discover them until the 1930s. That's more than 1,000. That's like 2,400 years of someone's effort not being seen or recognized. That's crazy. 2,400 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm not a good mathematician, so I undershot that, but okay.
Joel, when you talk to companies about appreciating or recognizing people's work, does the question ever get asked, how long will it take for appreciation to change the culture, to change a team?
I do. In fact,
hopefully the answer isn't 2,400 years.
Yeah. No, I think it's less than that. I think it actually is definitely less than that. One interesting comment recently, a guy came to one of our presentations, and afterwards he loved it and said, "Hey, how much does O.C. Tanner charge to change culture?" Now, if we could figure that one out, that'd be pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So that was a different thought on that. But you can't just throw something in and have it change. You can't just throw money at it and have it change. Culture change, it really takes time. It's a journey. In fact, that word culture, everybody's interested in that concept. Merriam-Webster found in just the last year or so that the number of hits on the word culture just spiked. Usually they see these little spikes happen around when college starts up and people are looking up words and what they mean. But they've been over, it's like over a million hits or 14 million hits a month.
Wow. On
the word culture. And so culture is a very interesting concept. People are looking at what that means. How long does it take? Well, that's an individual journey for each organization. Mm-hmm. However, I can say this. I've seen some immediate splash and impact when organizations have really bought into the concept of, okay, we need to change our mindset and what we're doing to value our people. And so whether it's a bunch of thank you cards like Pepsi did, they sent out 4,000 thank you cards after our training and had an immediate impact on their people.
Yeah.
But really, the change and the shift that we're talking about, or that we'd hope to have happen, it takes some time, but we need to put some structure in place.
Well,
and if you do that, yeah,
it's interesting because you're talking about cultures of appreciation, and as you and I are well aware of from the research that the Institute does, appreciation, there's a contagious nature about it. and so when you're talking about changing a culture, but I would gander to say that you hear stories all the time of how appreciation can impact, an individual or a small team, like within minutes, seconds of it happening. Let's talk about the big picture of what appreciation and recognition does for an employee. What does it mean for a person's work to be recognized?
Great question. A story that I've heard recently, I'll just share a brief story to kind of illustrate what I'm saying. Some of my colleagues, a friend of some of my colleagues, her name's Camille, shared this story, and she was driving her car on the freeway, had her little son strapped in the back seat, and realized, she has to make this exit, and so she quickly cuts over into the right lane, right in front of a semi. And unfortunately, the traffic ahead of her was stopped, so she kind of has to slam on her brakes. Now, you can imagine there's probably a lot of thoughts running through her head having to do that, knowing she just went right in front of a semi. In fact, Camille's mom works for a trucking company in the training department. And so Camille is very well versed on stopping distances for semi-trucks. And so she quickly looks in the rearview mirror, expecting to see that, the truck smash into her, looks at her son real quick, and lo and behold, that driver had kept proper stopping distance, and everything was fine, which was a great relief to her. And she notices, on closer inspection, this truck happens to be from the trucking company that her mom works at. So she gets the driver tag. She sends this really great thank you to this driver, saying, I want you to know, because of what you did, you saved my life and my son's life. Well, certainly Camille's mom, who works at the trucking company, who gets this beautiful thank you from Camille, goes to this truck driver and lets him know exactly what happened. And on her behalf, she said, I want to thank you because you saved my daughter's life and my grandson's life. And this burly truck driver gets emotional and says, this is the first time anyone has ever said we've done something right.
Oh, wow.
Now, he was just doing his job, and that's an interesting thing. People say, well, why do we need to recognize people who are just doing their job? Yes, just doing his job, and yet because he followed the safe practices, the things he was trained to do to just do his job, he protected and saved lives that day. And whether that's as drastic as that, when we talk about the impact on individuals, it can have an incredible emotional impact. This is human-to-human connection type stuff. And I love that concept because regardless of whether it's a simple thank you or whether it's a reward for saving the company millions of dollars or what have you, it has an impact on a very human and real level. And when humans are impacted, they impact their teams, it impacts the work that they produce, it impacts the organization overall.
That's an awesome story. So for listeners who might be thinking, okay, but I understand that human to human. I understand that appreciation and recognition is important. When you talk to companies and teams about the how-to, because you're saying you just said you got to create a process, right? You got to get this into your daily habits and activities and thinking to say, you know what, I need to go tell my people that I appreciate them. What is it that you're teaching people?
Okay, good. So let me get into. So this is a bit of the training type stuff that we talk about all the time. But we as a recognition company, we provide that structure, and that structure really follows best practices and strategies and all those things. Let me give this phrase, and then I'll maybe dive into that structure. The phrase is this: appreciation is delivered through meaningful and purposeful moments of recognition. So appreciation, our deep sense of gratitude, the sensitivity that we feel about other people, the work that they're doing, products, whatever, we may have those feelings, but unless they are conveyed or expressed through recognition, we've missed something. And so it to enable or to equip the hands of leaders, as well as any employee, because we feel that cultural change doesn't happen just top down, it is bottom up and it's side to side, and recognition is happening everywhere where appreciation is being conveyed, there's a couple of strategies that we follow.
Okay.
And I want to call them strategies, but I'm also going to call them naturally occurring opportunities, because they are. They naturally happen in life and in work life. So the first of these naturally occurring opportunities or strategies that we follow is encouraging effort. And what that means is we notice what people are doing. We praise it. We acknowledge it. We create an energy or a momentum to the work that people are doing. Are they just doing their jobs? Yes. But are we acknowledging that it matters? Yes. Mm-hmm. And we do that in low-cost, simple, easy-to-do ways. Pats on the back, thank you notes, whatever, right?
So when you say effort, it's before a result is achieved necessarily. This is the showing up and trying hard and giving your all kind of stuff, right?
Absolutely. In fact, we always say effort always precedes achievement. Mm-hmm. So we would love all of our people to achieve greatness and to produce a difference that others love, but that doesn't just happen willy-nilly. It happens because people are encouraged to stick with the things that matter, mm-hmm. right? So the reason for this is a performance strategy. It's really to create the momentum. It's also building trust between leaders and employees. And it shows when we encourage effort, when we're praising and noticing those little things that employees are doing. It helps them to build confidence in their competence, right? So they know that they can do what they're asked to do, and they gain confidence in that, enabling them for the future to continue to do good work, but also opens up the opportunity for great work to happen.
Nice.
Okay, so that's the first strategy. That's
mm-hmm.
a performance strategy, encouraging effort. The next one, though, is rewarding results. So effort precedes achievement, and we encourage it, but when people actually produce results or achieve something, we want to be there as well and reward that appropriately, like commensurate with the achievement, as we say. So this is where it's tied back to the organization. You make sure that an organization is on target when you reward the actual above and beyond results, the great performance of your people that reflects the behaviors associated with core values of your organization. We validate, when we do that, we validate the worth of the individual and affirm the employee's potential. We, from a performance standpoint, we then encourage the effort, but we also reward the results in appropriate and meaningful ways.
I like that.
Right. So Starbucks gift card may not be appropriate for someone who has just saved the company $1 bazillion, right? So we want to reward that appropriately, and so those first two concepts are really performance based.
Okay.
Right. And these naturally occur. They just happen if we're aware as leaders and as fellow colleagues of what our people are doing. But there's a third naturally occurring opportunity, and it's a strategy that we need to follow. And many organizations do this, and maybe not focus on the performance, which is sometimes a miss. And this is celebrating careers. So when people hit, let's say, a 1 year, a 3 year, a 5 year milestone in their career, or long service awards, as they say overseas, we want to acknowledge that person. And not just what they've done lately, but we're going to celebrate, let's say it's Mary. We're not going to just celebrate Mary's latest great piece of work, but we're going to celebrate Mary and her entire body of work, the value that she brings to the entire team and organization. Does that make sense? So it's different, not necessarily performance-based, but more focused on their overall impact.
Well, this is the bigger picture that I started this conversation with, is that, each day of walking into the desert, may have taken years to make a 9-mile line, but the start of that line is just as important as the end of it. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Well said, Todd. And this is why you get paid the big bucks, because you're brilliant that way. But it's true. When we're in the trenches, so like these folks building these Nazca Lines, these biomorphs and geoglyphs, it's hard to see what the big picture is. Mm-hmm. Leadership hopefully has that idea, But it's also necessary then, if leadership has that concept and can see the big picture, that they're helping us to get there, right? Because if the leaders are saying, no, you're slightly off, this line isn't completely straight, you need to do this, then leadership should also probably be there to say when you're doing something right. Because if this takes a long, long time, and I have no idea how long it took to make these things, we want everybody to be with us the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
So there's performance touch points. Those encouraging effort touch points happen a lot. They're frequent, right? Maybe weekly, according to research. People on average want to be acknowledged. Well, you can acknowledge effort. And then when the bigger things happen, we can reward the results. But we can also celebrate the entire body of work, and at the end of the project, whatever, we can celebrate. So there's all of these great little touch points.
Well, I love when you talk about celebrating an entire career, a body of work too. You know, I don't think that those of us who are in there working and getting our projects done, we typically don't. Even though we're thinking about the early work all the time, we don't acknowledge that we're thinking about it. How many times are you working on something today that somehow resembles something you did maybe 15 years ago, or a situation, and you draw back and you go, you know what, I remember a mistake I made back then, or a solution I discovered back then, and all of that stuff has value into where you are today. And I think that's really interesting to think about when you talk about, you know, celebrating a body of work, because, you know, sometimes that even becomes from before the job we have today, you know, previous career choices, that kind of stuff, right?
Sure, it can. I mean, life is made up of experiences. We learn, we grow, we fail, we stumble, but we pick ourselves up and move forward. And I think it's important that from the concept of appreciation in the workspace, mm-hmm. We're all humans. We all want, I think everybody wants to do something of value and be acknowledged for it.
Yeah.
And there are definite ways to do that. And when a leader in particular is able to articulate all of the things that you as an employee in your little role, what the impact that you have along the way, and then at the end of projects and as you hit certain milestones in the career, I think it's huge, because it tells the individual, it tells me when I'm acknowledged that I matter,
yeah.
That I have purpose, and then making that connection to I have purpose, but what I do has this impact on the product that we're working on, or this part of the organization, and the end results that we're after as a successful organization. It's all about communication, and communication done right. And these are very, people often think these are just soft skills, and okay, well, nice for you, but really, I just need results. But if you want results, make sure your people know that they matter and how they matter, and use these touch points, these human-to-human connection points, where we can really let them know that they matter and how they matter.
Oh, I love that. Appreciation being the emotion, and recognition being that tool or the communication that shows your appreciation. Those often get kind of clumped together as appreciation and recognition, as if they're the same thing, but they're not. They're the piece that connects one another. Joel, I was just thinking too, when we're talking about bodies of work, and the value that comes from a body of work. You're actually a perfect example of this. Let's focus on you for a second.
Okay.
Your body of work also includes being an actor. You've appeared in numerous films and commercials. You have this big personality in real life. You can light up a room. What's the goal, whether in front of a camera or on stage in front of people? When you talk about, you think that everyone wants to make an impact, you're everyone. You're one of everyone, right? So what's your goal in whether you're on stage acting or you're in front of people teaching them about appreciation? What is it that the impact you want to make?
Okay, let me. That's a good question. I guess if I were to say it this way, I think it encapsulates everything I've tried to do in my career, in my careers, in what I try to accomplish. And I've always wanted to have impact. But for me, whether it's entertainment or whether it's training and sharing these thought leadership ideas and concepts, I want people to be impacted. I want people to be affected. And one way to do that certainly is through energy and entertainment and making people laugh. I love doing that. There's a guy, when I was in high school, and this guy, he was called Dr. Tim, and he came, and he was this motivational speaker. And I'm not a motivational speaker, but what he did inspired me, and he would get people laughing, get all these high school kids laughing. And then he would tell us, after he gets us laughing, he would give us some important counsel or a nugget of information. And he says, I get your mouths open and then I shove down this information. and what I don't necessarily want people to feel that I'm shoving information down them, but I want them to be impacted, to absorb, to be changed for good. In all honesty, I want people to be impacted for good, and so I want to be involved in good acting projects that will inspire somebody to do something right. I don't want to be involved in just junk. But when I'm out there training too, I want people to walk away happy with a smile on their face, but having learned something that will impact them for good. And that's honestly, that is what motivates me. And if I can align that the right way to what it is I do as a speaker and trainer, or even as an actor, then I'm successful and I'm happy.
I love that.
And I don't know if that's what you're asking for, but I don't know. That was
I love that response because it's I think entertainment is important. We all want to be entertained, but if we leave whether it's a feature film or a presentation, about appreciation, and we walk away with a smile on our face thinking, that Joel guy, he's funny. That's great. But if we walk away going, and then think about it, think about those movies that stick in your head, that it's more than the story. It means something to you. It makes you think about something bigger. It makes you think about how you are and what you do and how you treat people or what have you. I love that answer. Joel, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. For listeners who want to learn more about you or the speaking you do and the training you do for the O.C. Tanner Institute, where's the best place to find you?
Okay, couple of ways perhaps. First of all, certainly if you go to octanner.com, there's so much great information there. I mean, you could spend days and days in there looking at the white papers and things. I've written blogs. You can find me under the blog area. There's some videos that you can find me in under octanner.com. However, perhaps the most direct way, if you wanted to talk some more or get some more or further any conversation, email me, joel.bishop@octanner.com. Very simple, and then I'm happy to contact and have a discussion or get you in touch with the right person. But go to the website, get some great information. But if you want to contact me directly, joel.bishop@octanner.com.
I love that. You know what? I just Googled you right now. And I also see a bunch of stuff with you online in film. So if anyone is curious to see your acting skills, they can also just Google you because you got stuff all over the place. Joel, again, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Todd. All the best.
O.C. Tanner has helped the world's top companies improve innovation through employee recognition. Learn what insights are in store for your company. Visit octanner.com today.